So this is a little bit about what I've done and why I've done it. So one of the reasons I'm here and I'm doing what I do is because of stuff like this, basically on social media. This is a really common reaction to something that I would post, or, you know, if someone would ask for advice, there's a general flat out knee-jerk reaction that if women needed to be in tech, or if women were going to be in tech, they'd be there already. Why do we need a special program? Why do we need to do anything like that? It's quite entrenched in the existing tech community, which can be something that can really hamper your recruitment efforts. Because what I have found in the past is if you've got a lot of attitude like this within the company already, there won't be support for your work other than on paper. And if you do get any diverse teams in, this sort of entrenched attitude is really obvious straight away, so people won't stay. Now, these are all genuine. What I've done every time I see someone posting this is I screenshot it like I've shown you here, and I look, and if they're stupid enough to post where they work on their social media, I send it to their company and say, I bet you're having a problem hiring diverse tech teams, aren't you? So these are, as I've said, actual screenshots from things that I've posted online. And when I get them, I don't get into a flame war online. I just send them to the HR of the company who they work for, if they've put it who they work for online, because these are the type of people who will be hampering their company's approach to hiring diverse tech teams. People who see no need for diversity, believing that women are paid more, or they get the jobs because they're better looking, or these are all, you know, I haven't made these up. Really easy to find anything like this. If you go onto any kind of social media and tech groups, they're there. And they are part of the problem. So now, can I get it to advance? Yeah. So hopefully you can see the next slide now. It's really informative. It's just one of my favorite things, rainbow unicorns. Because that's what I've built. It is the unicorn. It is the tech myth that you can't have 50-50 teams. You can't have diverse teams. It doesn't exist. You can't do it. Well, that's not correct. You can do it. And the way you do it is by hiring people who are passionate about doing it, by, you know, setting your goals, but also being realistic about them. And we'll go on to goals in a little bit. But the reality is, it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to do. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I've got some stats comparing where I was at against the other big tech companies. And, you know, if Microsoft and Google still haven't got 50-50, you know, they know, and they've got programs. You know, I've worked with Microsoft doing DigiGirl stuff. I've done Google's I'm Remarkable, gone down to their lovely office in King's Cross. They've all got initiatives, and they are needed and they are working, but there's still more to do. And maybe if I was in a company the size of, I can only talk about my area, my Scrum teams in my Aviva. But I mean, it's not just it's not just one Scrum team, it's multiple. So I'll come on to the size and the types of roles and things later. But yeah, the unicorn is real. It can be done. So a bit about what I do. So people always say, oh, what do you do, Nina? Oh, I'm an IT manager. Oh, well, what's that mean? So I'm like, okay, so when you log into any of your apps on your phone or your banking or any of that, you'll get a little donut going round and round and round and round and round and round and round, and you can't see what it's doing. That's all my stuff's in there. It's invisible. It's in the donut. I don't get a lot of front end designers. I don't have anything pretty to show people about what I do. So I talk to them about the donut and being in the donut. And if they actually are more interested, I go on to talk about plumbing, because it's the best analogy I have for middleware. So you've got a nice front end. You've got a beautiful glass sink with one of those flat tray waterfall taps. some lovely UX designer and UI people have put that together, and they've worked out where the best buttons are and what the proper colours are. And then at the back end, you've got a mainframe that's 30 years old, 40 years old, maybe even older. You know, I'm getting on for that. So, you know, realistically, some of the pension systems I'm working on are actually almost older than me, because pensions are one thing that doesn't upgrade every year. And you've got a pension when you're 20, and you might be drawing on it when you're 65, and that's 45 years later. So they're very long running systems. So to me, my back end pension systems that are 40 odd years old, they're the water treatment facilities, they're your reservoirs, they're your big back end data lakes, water lakes. Think of it the same thing. Your front end, nice shiny stuff, is your sink. Everything in the middle, whether it's the plumbing in your house or the sewerage in your street, that is middleware, that is API. So that's what I do. It's not pretty, and you don't want to know about it until it goes wrong. Because if it goes wrong and you get sewage spouting out of your sink, then you're very upset very quickly. So it's important to not know about it. It's basically, if anyone's coming to you with a middleware problem, then it's pretty much pooey, and that's what you don't want. So there is a slight twist in this, that the gender diversity in middleware is actually much lower than any other area in tech, because it isn't somewhere that's an attractive area to work. A lot of the women in tech will go into front end roles, PM roles, BA roles that aren't necessarily pure technical roles. In middleware, all of the roles, even the BAs, are technical. Our BAs will need to know a lot about data mapping and interfaces to actually work on this. So everything in my area is technical. There are no non-technical tech roles, as it were. So when I came in Sheffield, I set myself goals. Aviva has this great thing, you'll get some cascaded down. I'm sure many companies are the same. You'll get a mid-year and end of year, the normal sort of stuff. But there's always that, well, set yourself some goals. So these were the goals I set myself. So one was about the number of people, one was about the diversity of people, and one was about the quality of people, because there's no good just hiring a load of really rubbish people. So these weren't something that I was asked to do, but if I was going to build a new team from scratch, I had the opportunity to not employ people who would post stuff on social media like we saw at the beginning. And I had the opportunity to build a balanced team. So these were what I set myself. These are the ones that I achieved. Didn't achieve all of them. Guess that's good. So I didn't get my Scrum Team 4 in first year. Just sheer volume. I was recruiting and interviewing, just did not get there. Didn't get my stretch target of 42, and didn't get the second Scrum Team for pensions up. It was just sheer volume of recruitment over a year and draining the market of quality and other things. Quality wise, I didn't do a fail fast. I managed somebody out, but that took 9 months. It was a lot slower than anticipated. There can be a lot of reasons for that, but also I didn't have any voluntary leavers before year end, but I did have, because it was a fail fast and it didn't fail fast, I considered that because I managed someone out and it took 9 months, I failed that on quality. But and in the second year I had a similar thing. But I think it's good to have that as a target and to try and manage fast. Now, some people and some companies have the sort of probation period. That wasn't something that I had as a formal thing in Aviva, set for me as by the company. And by not having that, it gave people a lot of confidence to grow, especially the more junior team members. If I'd have had it, would I have met that? Maybe. But sometimes when you're in a new, very technical area, I think maybe 3 months was ambitious in the first place. So yeah, I did set the goals. I set them. They weren't set to me, and they were something that I believed in. So this was the year end that we were at, 2018, and then I've got the 2019 sample further on. So it's a little bit small to read some of this, but I don't know how to move some of my I'm moving your faces around my screen. So the tech job ratios is amazing because, like I say, the majority of our tech, but what I did is I excluded Scrum Masters from that and excluded BAs. So if you look at the tech job split, I've got 30% of female. Oh, didn't mean to do that. The tech job split, I've got 30% of females on there, and that is way above most people's tech job splits. And this was in the first year, it wasn't by the second year, which I've got later. My ethnicity split wasn't great on the first year. It was representative to Aviva, but it wasn't representative to Sheffield. So some work on that came in the second year. And the overall workforce, again, was still a little bit unbalanced at the end of the first year. So yeah, there's a little bit of there. In terms of women in development, the overall industry figures are 14%, but then Stack Overflow said around 7%. Well, if I come on to my developers in a bit, that's, you know, I am on the 50-50 there, so it's possible, but we'll talk about how I did that. So on to my next screen. So this is about developers, and developers are who I enjoy managing the most. So in 1992, 94, I did GCSE A-level and A-level computer science. These were my best mates. They are the majority of people currently and still working in the tech industry now. They are your white middle-aged men that are your experts. And to be fair, I'm not going to say that any of them are going to write stuff like I found online, but that has always been the image. That has always been the image. It isn't true. And it's about me enabling people to make it not true. So these are some of my girls from Aviva, from 2018 International Women's Day. They're all coders, bar the lady with blonde hair to the left of me, who's a BA, and she is a technical BA. They have all come to work for me, have chosen to work for me for varying reasons, but they are technical women and they want to support other technical women. So they're keen on getting involved in Women's Day. They're keen on doing mentoring. They're keen on, you know, public speaking and coming out and helping me carry the message. There is a range of diversity there in terms of age as well, and in terms of ethnicity. So by the end of, I think the cut from October 2019, this was my Scrum Teams. So I've got a couple of Scrum Teams in that. I've got domain owners, tech leads, both of my BAs are women. But you can actually see in terms of developers, I've got more female developers than I have male. So that is, but also my two tech leads, bless them, in the middle in red there, they're both men. Because to be a tech lead, to have been around in this industry a long time, you're still looking at middle-aged white men, and they have their place and they are amazing, and I love them to bits. My tech leads, they're fantastic. But it's about getting the right ones. So designers, which I don't mean front-end designers, not pretty, technical designers that look at data flow and data mapping, they're both women. One of them is Indian. So you'll see, it's been quite difficult for me to map people's ethnicity in these little emojis, because I was going to use people's photos and it really blew all their anonymity. So I asked the girls if I could choose their photos for the Women's Day, but other than that, I've tried to stick with emojis. Not everyone in my team loves their emoji face, but this is my team. But you can see from that tech leads, I've got a couple of mid to senior level women that are coming through that will be tech leads within a couple of years. They're not quite there yet. So it's about getting the right tech leads to create the right environment for them to come into. But yeah, more female than male. So another way to look at it was the age diversity. So put in those emojis, you can see you've got a nice middle-aged white man layer in the middle, and then at the bottom we've got a nice diverse young team that are going to be the future. Well, this is how I saw it, the future of Aviva, the future of the Forge. We've also got some older ladies, and some of these older ladies at the top have actually retrained into tech, and they have been a real asset into the Forge, because they're bringing a lot of maturity. Some of them bringing business experience in, and just a different life perspective. And that is how the diversity in teams works, is bringing that differences of background in, whether it is your age or your ethnicity, whatever it is, it's valuable. So one of the things that I've done is, these are often my values. Now, every time you go to a new company, they'll have some company values, and a lot of them will be around trust and diversity, maybe around networking, connected, things like that. So one of the things that I find is really, really important is trust, and building your team's trust in you. And even when they're coming for an interview, particularly if I'm speaking from Sheffield, the market is booming. Developers out there can walk out of one job and into another. It's that simple. So how are you going to retain them? How are you going to convince them to join you? So you've got to put that across in the interview. So I interviewed all the staff that worked for me. I didn't do all their tech tests. I didn't do every in-depth piece of checking on the background, but I did interview them so that they could understand what I was building and why. I'm a big fan of coaching, a coaching approach to develop a younger team, which is what I got. You know, the big base of the pyramid was the youth, and coaching them and bringing them on and asking them what they want, which comes to feedback, which is a really common theme in my team building and establishing. So without the trust, you can't build that. The feedback, every time I join people in cohorts, 2 or 3 people a month, so no one joined on their own. No one's first day was on their own. That was really important, because people's first days really make them feel welcome or not. So joining people in cohorts every month or every other month in groups of 2 or 3 worked. We did lots of team building games on people's first days. One of the team building games that I've used before, is one about music and bands. So we're all in a circle, we're in the breakout area with the beanbags and a coffee and relaxing. And you say a name of band and it goes round. And say if I say AC/DC, the person next to me has to start theirs with a C. So they'll say Cliff Richard. It ends with a D. The next person has to start with a D, and so on and so forth. This worked pretty well, I thought. But afterwards, I spoke to 2 of the new recruits the following day, like, how was your first day? What could we have done better? And they said, well, I didn't really know any of the music. Now, those 2, it was both a lady and a gentleman who had African origins. Their music that they were brought up on was totally different. They didn't, you know, AC/DC might be something that's really well known to the white population, but if you've been brought up in Africa and have only come to the UK in your late teens, early 20s to study, it's not necessarily going to be relevant for you. So finding that feedback and allowing them to say to me, actually, it was a bit of a white game. You know, I've never used it since. But you've got to give people the opportunities to say what makes them feel included, what doesn't make them feel included. As a result of that, I asked them, is there anything that you would like to do? We already do Ramadan and Eid, you know, big food then, and Diwali, any excuse for a celebration, Valentine's bakes, whatever, we're already all over it. So we did the first ever Nigeria Day that Aviva had ever seen, and we had you know, a little bit of a budget for bringing in certain rice dishes, and we all had this fizzy drink that was totally different. And these two people, you know, that was their heritage, that's what they understood. And so we brought that to the rest of the team and spoke about that. So getting the feedback early on and developing that trust so that people can say stuff like that is so important. People talk about diversity, but are they proactively seeking a more engaged team? By proactively seeking an engaged team, I mean working with areas outside of the universities. Yep, I did the universities, used to go to the careers fair, sit there with my little Aviva stall. I didn't actually take on anyone from any of those days. That didn't happen. They weren't the right candidates when I did interview them. How did I recruit the diverse team? I used separate companies that are looking to do diversity as part of their primary focus. So you've got Innovate Her in Liverpool, you've got North Coders in Manchester, and you've got Ben Arthur and the Developer Academy in Sheffield. These are companies that are driven by individuals. So you've got Chelsea Slater in Innovate Her, Amal Batra for Ben Arthur. These are people that are like me that want to do something about the diversity in tech. So are offering training directly to diverse candidates at reduced rates, at free rates, at sponsored rates, at all these different options that they provide. So by proactively seeking the team is you've got to develop the relationships with the people in your area that are doing this stuff. You can't just put an advert out. Like the very, you know, clip that I put right on at the beginning from Facebook. Well, the adverts are out there. Women can apply if they want to. They won't. If you put an advert out, women won't apply. That's not how you get a diverse team. You've got to be proactive, and you've got to be looking at feedback. So if somebody isn't applying, there are quite a few networks for women coders. There's one called Ada's List, which actually a lot of recruiters I speak to have never heard of. So Ada's List is a separate network that is just about recruiting women for tech jobs. And these jobs are not even sometimes advertised on mainstream. The best jobs that I've got haven't come from me applying from adverts. And that is the way that women network. That is the way that women get jobs. They don't get jobs by applying for an advert. So even if you put on your advert flexible working, they're not, you know, they see that on every advert, and their experience is when they've gone to an interview and asked about it, it's Fridays from home. It isn't flexible working. You know, they can't drop the kid off every day, or they can't pick the kid up. I'll come on to that a little bit more in a minute. So the feedback again, and addressing behaviours that make people feel excluded. So what I was able to do is make sure I didn't recruit anyone who displayed those behaviours. However, most of you will be dealing with a team that is already existing. What you need to make sure is that they're not there, and if they are there, they are managed out. Because you're not ever going to get a diverse team if the people are in there and they're making others feel excluded for whatever. We did a Women's Day. We did an International Men's Day something, and we put it online, and it was about a charity for testicular cancer. Some of my guys were up there supporting it, and someone not in tech in our company, but someone commented, "I'm sick of all these days. Why do we have to have all these days? I don't care if you're gay, just don't tell me about it. I don't want to know. I don't need a Women's Day, a Man's Day, a International Day of Bi Visibility." You know, and they just went on this long rant, and you know, that is what is going to really drive down your recruiting and your diversity. And that person wasn't in my team, and they weren't in tech, but they were in Aviva, you know, and they felt that it was totally okay to express those opinions, and They weren't in my team, so I didn't deal with it, but I hope somebody did, because that is what's going to stop stuff. Oh, I missed that one. Making people feel like a team when you're recruiting. Trying not to enforce this with alcohol. One of the things about diversity is not everybody drinks. Not everyone wants to go to the pub. So board games are really popular. We've done so many different things. The game about the music was one of them that I've put to one side now, but we've done egg throwing. How far can you throw it without breaking it? You know, building towers, a lot of the standard stuff that people will, done all sorts of random shoe swapping, stickers on heads, making reindeers out of tights with party balloons, quizzes, things like that, stuff that you can do in a couple of hours. You can take people out of their, and just make them not think about coding for a little bit, and to bring them together as a team and to cross over your Scrum teams, because what will happen is you'll get a Scrum team, whereas actually you want a large team. Obviously I've got a team of 30, 40 people. I want them to be a team as well as individual Scrum teams. And again, seek the feedback about the networking and how that's going. So this is a bit of summary about what I've talked about. So taking people without a degree. The Developer Academy is the one in Sheffield, but also in-house training. At both HSBC, before I moved to Aviva a few years ago, and in Aviva, I've pulled people from their in-house teams. So I had 4 people in my Aviva team that were previously in a call centre. One of them had a HND in computer science, and then she'd done it in the part-time in the evening, then carried on working in the call centre for Aviva because she loved Aviva. You know, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to make the step into working in tech. It was too intimidating. And she liked the company. You know, by networking with other senior managers in Aviva, I found out about her and pulled her in. Again, other senior managers and going to health and safety meetings, the sort of day-to-day admin that you have to do as a manager, finding out that they've got someone who built their website, little thing for them. And they're like, oh, he's really good, but, you know, he doesn't have any qualifications, but he's really keen. He did this, that, and the other for me. Right, well, let's pull him in. You know, let's have him as a trainee dev. And at HSBC, we did, it wasn't a formal apprenticeship scheme that I used there, but I used to do a tech test, and every year just bring in 1 or 2 people that showed aptitude, and then get them in, bring them as testers initially. And if they can cope with the testing, make the testing more technical, like automation engineers, so they're coding and scripting. And you know, some of them went on to be coders, and some of them went on to be Scrum Masters. You know, they'd have never moved from like document processing or wherever they were in the bank, but bringing people in that have got business knowledge or that are loyal to your company is really going to help with retention, because recruitment's no good without your retention. So open days, we used to do a lot of Forge open days in Aviva in Sheffield. There are about 2,500 people on site. We're one office with like 40 odd desks. Half people don't even know we're there as an office. So loads of open days, cakes, tea and coffee mornings. The first one we did was International Women's Day, but it didn't have to be, you know, necessarily. We just say, right, on Friday, we're going to do an open day. Anyone who wants to know more about the digital work that Aviva does can come along. And, you know, we just make people cups of coffee, talk about what we do, why we do it, you know, and how we got into it and what they might need. You know, well, maybe you sound really good, you're really process orientated. You know, what about design and data flow mapping, things like that. So talk to them about the sort of soft skills that can be converted into tech skills. And then make sure flexible means flexible. This is huge, because what I got was people working for me who needed that flexibility, that wouldn't have gone to work for Sky Bet, who are my massive competitors, William Hill. They are Java shops near me that will take and will pay 20 to 30 grand more than I can pay them at Aviva. So I need to compete on working environment, flexibility, trust, openness, those values have to mean something, and flexibility has to mean flexible, because they have to want to work somewhere for a lower pay when they know they can earn more. And that's important. So a couple of the really amazing tech leads I had, one of them, his wife has got ME. They have a lot of stuff, you know, around her illness. So he often needs to just take 2 hours, and that's fine. He just takes 2 hours. Doesn't matter when it is. Doesn't even tell me anymore, because, you know, I said, you know, I'm not calculating your 2 hours. I'm not sitting there and knocking it back on and saying at the end of the week, did you do that 2 hours? Because it's flexibility and responsibility and not micromanagement. And the other thing you need is having, I'm not the head of Aviva, I'm a long way down from the head of Aviva. You need layers above you that are really supporting this. So the person who was my head of department at the time was Pete Marsden. He wasn't just saying that he was interested in diverse teams. He wasn't just saying he wanted to build a new team. He meant it. He set his own targets. You know, he set his targets around the same thing, stuff that was optional. He was told you can set any goal. He set these for himself as well. So that meant when I said to him, can I do half a day taking this? Can I give my team, can they come and teach Code First Girls with me? Yeah. Can I have a budget for Code First Girls and take pizza with me every time I go? Yes. You know, because really it's 110 quid to take pizza to Code First Girls. That's, you know, not even a drop in the ocean of his entire budget, but it's getting the Aviva name out there associated with bringing women into tech and doing that thing, and making sure the men you hire the right men. We've gone through that. And that is pretty much where I'm up to.